Should you grow a larger asset base, or should you start paying down the debt in your property portfolio? In this video, I'm going to be discussing why I think you should grow your asset base larger rather than looking to pay down the debt straight away, and how this concept can change your mindset around investing in property. My name's Luke. I talk all things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom on the channel. Drop a like on this video and subscribe down below. And let's talk about growing a bigger property pie. Now, in my opinion, I think that people should grow their asset base. The statistics say that most Australians aren't going to have more than 1 or 2 investment properties. And this is where most people get tripped up. They either get fearful of growing too much debt, so having too much debt attached to their name, or they actually get stuck with the serviceability and can't get access to more debt from the banks or brokers that they're dealing with. And so this is where Emily and I are probably in the 1% where we've been able to grow and scale a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. And so why do I think you should overcome these hurdles, and how do you overcome these hurdles to grow that multi-million-dollar portfolio and grow that asset base to have a bigger pie? So let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Would you rather have $1 million of assets and $1 million of investment debt, or $5 million of assets and $5 million of investment debt? Assuming that the cash flows on each of those asset bases were neutral, so the income covered the expenses on that portfolio, for me, I would always go the $5 million of assets with the $5 million of debt, because if they have similar growth rates around the 5 or say 10% mark each year, the $5 million at a 10% growth rate will go to $5.5 million, whereas the $1 million asset base would only go to 1.1. So I've made $500K here, whereas in this portfolio, I've only made $100,000. And that's where economies of scale and growing a larger property pie makes sense to me. Now, a lot of people will answer that they only want to have the $1 million of assets and $1 million of debt because they're looking at that debt number going, I don't want $1 million of debt attached to my name. And Aussie's fear of debt is very real. I see it in my week-to-week discussions with people looking to sign up to my buyer's agency services, looking at their own home, their current debt, and their investment debt, and working out how to find the balance. Now, in an ideal portfolio, you'd be looking to pay down your principal place of residence because that is bad debt. And so if you do overspend on your own home and you do buy a too nice a house or you spend too much money on yourself, that's where I can see that is bad debt. So in that case, if it was your own home and you did have $1 million of debt attached to it, then I would potentially be worried about that as well. But in this hypothetical scenario, we're talking about $1 million of investment debt versus $5 million of investment debt, and how that larger asset base and that larger amount of leverage can give you magnified gains. The important thing to understand here is it can also give you magnified losses. So if your $5 million portfolio went down by 10%, as well as the $1 million property, you would have a $100,000 negative equity position in the $1 million portfolio and a $500,000 negative equity position, so $4.5 million worth of assets on $5 million worth of debt, if the portfolio decreased by 10%. So using leverage and using debt to your advantage can magnify the gains, and it can also magnify the losses. But my opinion as a property investor is we're not looking to invest for 1, 3, 5 years. We should be taking a 10, 15, 20-year horizon on our investment portfolio. This debt is being used to create an asset base, to create passive income, and to also hold these assets so that they can grow over time. And this is the real reason I specialize in property, and I love property. One of the great reasons is that you can use this leverage to your advantage. If you go into the share market or the crypto market, there are some options to do staking and to use margin to actually grow your share or your crypto portfolio. But there are significant risks and limits to your ability to use this leverage, and you can't necessarily get this leverage at a low interest rate. And also margin calls can be very scary if you see a dip in share prices or share values where the bank will essentially sell your portfolio off to actually reclaim that money and protect the bank's investment. So that's why I've specialized in property. You can get access to relatively cheap debt. You can hold a large asset base. You can also manufacture growth on those deals, and you get the passive income over time on those properties. So the idea of this video is to change your mindset and work out how you can overcome those hurdles to grow your asset base rather than getting stuck at 1 or 2 properties. So there were 2 camps that I spoke about before. The fear of debt camp was the first one. So if you're in that camp and you're fearful of debt, change your mindset that this debt is for investment purposes. I get a tax deduction for this debt. I need to calculate the numbers and understand the cash flows. That's very important. And I also need to forecast the growth of my property portfolio and be conservative with the numbers to calculate whether this will actually benefit me in the long run. Now, some people won't be able to get over this fear of debt and won't be able to scale and grow a large portfolio, which will potentially give them passive income and capital gains over time. But if you can overcome those hurdles and you do have the serviceability to scale that portfolio, then that's exactly what I have done in our journey. We started with our very first property, we manufactured value. When we had the opportunity to refinance and buy our next investment, we moved straight away. And then we did the same thing. We manufactured value again on the baby Queenslander, and then we bought the triple Gable Queenslander, and then we manufactured, pulled out our finances again from the bank, put out $700,000 of cash, and went and bought Coffs Harbour, and went and bought that unit block. So it was incremental steps. Once we had the opportunity to refinance and grow our asset base, we took advantage of that opportunity and moved forward. Now, if you're in the camp where you're stuck and you no longer have serviceability, there's only really a couple of options for you. You either need to reduce your expenses, increase your income, and re-strategize around the property investment that you're looking to buy. So reducing your expenses is pretty straightforward. Try and get them down to a minimal rate, especially when you're leading up to getting your finances from a broker or bank. The next thing is obviously increasing your day job income. That's going to help boost your serviceability. It's going to free up your cash flow to go towards that investment in the bank's calculators, and it's actually going to allow you to obtain more investment debt. The third one is around the strategy of your property portfolio. If you're hitting a serviceability cap, you might want to buy lower priced properties which have a higher yield, because that will boost your cash flow, so allow you to easily hold that debt relative to something that's, say, negatively geared. And it will also allow you to scale the portfolio. So if you can get a 5, 6, 7% yield on that cash flowing purchase, that will increase your income that goes into the serviceability calculators and allow you to potentially acquire another property and roll on in terms of those circumstances. Now, this is probably not groundbreaking knowledge to a lot of you, and it is easy to understand in my opinion. You can understand if you have a larger asset base and it grows by the same rate as a smaller asset base, you're going to be significantly better off with that larger asset base. I'm sure all of us would love to control, say, $100 million worth of assets and see them grow by 5% or 10% in a year, or even 3%. If you can control a large asset base, a small percentage of growth actually means a really large difference in dollars. So you need to work within what you can control at this point in time. Are you being held back by fear of debt, or are you being held back by your finances? Work through those problems one at a time and look to make that next step forward and take an incremental approach to growing your property portfolio. From about the ages of 15 or 16, I was reading these, let me pull this up. From about the ages of 15 or 16, I was reading these property investor magazines where I would sift through. I didn't have any money at the time. I was working at a swimming pool for $27 an hour, and I was thinking and working out what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to invest in property to give me choices. Now, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't take action and you don't look to make that next incremental step, whether it's chatting with a broker, whether it's putting an offer in on that property, whether it's signing up with a buyer's agent, if you don't take that next step, you won't move forward towards the end goal. So work towards the outcomes incrementally. Look to grow that asset base. For us, we had goals of $2 million worth of assets, $5 million worth of assets, which is where we're at now. And our eventual goal is to have a $10 million asset base. I also have other things and projects that I want to get involved in, and growing the asset base and growing the property portfolio will allow us the choices to explore those ideas, to help others in different spaces, and to work towards different goals and to create choices in our life. So leave a comment down below. What's the next step for you to grow your property portfolio? And if you could drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel down below, that would really help me out. And if you're looking for a Brisbane buyer's agent, head over to my website at purposeproperty.com.au and click this video over here for more things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.